So I'm not going to shock you if I'll tell you that putting Kubernetes and databases accessible to the public cloud is not a really good idea because those infrastructure usually have a lot of sensitive data and you should not access them on a daily basis. So you should put them in some sort of Bastion, private subnet, or any other alternative, even on-prem. One of the points in the Kubernetes blog that's saying 11 ways how not to get hacked. So the first one is just putting your API server private. Moreover, databases don't really have any DDoS or password brute forcing protection. So if your database is publicly accessible, hackers will just try to brute force the hell out of those DBs. And this will drastically reduce your performance. So stepping one level up in terms of private infrastructure, you can put your servers and other infrastructure behind the Bastion or jump host. That way you have a server that has one leg in the private subnet and one in the public one. And yeah, you just connect to it. And from there, you can connect to your infrastructure. This is way, way, way more secure than just putting it out there, but it has some drawbacks. The first one is now you have another server that you need to maintain and patch. Another one is that the way you control access via SSH is with username and passwords, and those are static credentials that you should consider rotating every now and then. Also, username and password are not considered that secure, so you probably should use certificates. Certificates, on the other hand, you're probably going to have one certificate for your whole team and not going to create certificates per person, and also those certificates need to be rotated, making it even more complex and hard to operate. Alternative to that, you can buy a third-party product, DNA, VPNs, all sorts of categories out there, making access to sensitive resources much more easier, secure. The drawback with that is that usually expensive and adds a lot of cost on top of your existing cloud provider infrastructure. Another big drawback is now you're introducing third-party risks and availability. If those solutions get compromised or have a vulnerability in them, you can get exposed as well. So before you continue, in the last few decades, people were using those two solutions and they were kind of okay with it. But in the last year or two, the public clouds made it available to have native built-in identity-aware proxies. GCP had one called with a really indicative name, identity-aware proxy. Azure launched their Azure Bastion, and Amazon had a new plugin to SSM called SSM port forwarding. All of them provide seamless access to native infrastructure inside your clouds without adding any third-party toolery. So in this example, I will show you how you can connect using SSM to a Kubernetes cluster that sits behind the Bastion. As you can see here, this is a really complex command. You can try sharing this command for each environment separately to developers, but it doesn't really scale because infrastructure is constantly changing and developed, matures, delete, and keeping this up to date is really operational burden. Luckily, we open sourced Beam. We started exactly as you can see beforehand. We used to have those commands and we shared them with everyone in the team. And later on, we wrote some scripts. And this is also wasn't easy to maintain because they were static. And the way with the cloud nowadays is it's constantly evolving and you need to rescan and update this script all day long. So we sat back and decided to write something that constantly scans your infrastructure and giving you an easy way to connect to it. So let's just show you a live demo of how Beam works. And from there, we can explain how it works and what you need to do to have this amazing product as well. So, spoilers. First of all, you need to Beam configure. Beam starts by interacting with your AWS SSO or AWS Identity Center, its new name, and of course its region. Once it gets that, because I already had this connection, Beam saves it in the cache that you do not need to refresh the session every time. It doesn't open a browser in order to verify this login. You can choose whatever account you want Beam to scan. And you can also, of course, don't choose one that will scan everything. For this demo, I prepared a small environment for you. And as you can see, we chose one account and we chose one permission set. For the purposes of it, making it super fast, it will only scan one region at the moment. You can just make it scan everything. You should specify what's the names of Bastion. In our environment, they're just named Bastion and the environment. And in our case, this is not the default one. It's called Entitle. Yes, we wanted to connect to PKSs, all of them, RDS as well, all of them. And as you can see, Beam created a neat configuration that you can share with everyone in your team. Once I click save, it will be saved in my local machine. So now I can Beam run. Beam will go to any DB that it's fine and any EKS and just will automatically connect to it. As you can see, Beam found two databases and connected to them and also to Kubernetes. So as you can see, it's already injected into the kubeconfig. Hooray! Back to the slides. So the prerequisites for using BIM is to have an AWS SSO configured with at least more than one account. You can also use one, but we highly not recommend it. You definitely should split your environments and use it that way. Every environment should have its own VPC with a Bastion. So the cool thing about the SSM manager, that's because of the agent sitting on the EC2, you can actually have the Bastion in a private subnet. The Bastion will back connect to the session manager and will constantly waiting for connections. So your Bastion can be completely not exposed, and actually all the infrastructure can be air gapped rather than have the traditional jump host. So the way it works, after you have the configuration, Beam will automatically scan for all the infrastructure available at those accounts and will just connect to them according to the policy you configured in Beam Configure. It will edit the host file in order to make all the cool tools you already have and use to work seamlessly, because your local computer will think that the infrastructure is sitting here or wherever it's far away from us. Also, of course, it will print you the database connection and edit the kube config as you desire. So what you should take from this talk, in my opinion at least, is you should be aware of those technological advancements that happened in the last few years. I'm talking about SSM, Azure Bastion, and Identity or Proxy. And you should consider moving to some sort of more secure of accessing infrastructure. Even if you're starting to use a Bastion with a password or certificate, this is so much greater than just putting it out there. And of course, if you want to use Beam, then you're more than welcome. Thank you, guys. If you have any questions, then feel free to reach out, and you can read more about Beam at lio.beam. Thank you.